been the most effective saddle that's worked for this horse. He's 11 this year, and we haven't been able to find anything that fits him for the past 4 years. He moves freer in it in front. He's able to pick himself up and carry himself better. And then as a rider, it's helped my position. So it's put me more upright and my leg position more correct. And I have a tendency to hunch, so it really forces me to sit up and use my core correctly. We were having trouble finding anything that fit Bonamy. He's a very long-backed horse, and a lot of the saddles would put me in a hole in the middle of his back, and I ended up in a bad position myself as a rider, and it was hard to be effective. It definitely changed my position right off the bat. I sat in a different spot on Bonamy's back, more correctly where I should have been sitting as opposed to too far back, and it put me more upright as a rider, more correct position. So it actually was a little bit more difficult for me because I had to use myself differently, but in a positive way. It has just worked for us.
I was fortunate enough to come to these saddles because of a boarder with a nice little quarter horse, kind of a strange body type and definitely had his quirks, and she was, you know, of such a good owner and really trying to just make him as comfortable and as happy as possible. So she, you know, came with Melissa and these saddles, and she was like, okay, can you ride him in this saddle for me? And I was like, okay, what is this? But he was just so much better. I mean, there just was no denying how much happier he was and how much more willing he was. And I think that was the first time I started to think, well, maybe it's because it's so new, or maybe there's something to this. So then I started trying the saddles on different horses, and my mom got one. And I started stealing my mom's saddle and putting it on all of my horses. And lo and behold, they were all just so much better in her saddle than they were in the traditional saddles that I had used forever. I mostly have warm bloods, but I've also got a thoroughbred jumper, and all of them just seem so much happier, more willing, more athletic, freer, jump better, just everything you want your horses to feel. And just I really put an emphasis on my horses feeling happy and healthy, and this has been such a big part of my program, is just being able to have a variety of these saddles that work on all of my horses. And you know, they've all stepped up. They're doing better at the shows. We're just being a lot more successful, and day to day is just so much more joyful being with them.
Having saddle fit issues with my horse ever since I imported him, and I was on my 4th saddle, and he still just was back sore all the time, didn't want to go forward. A totally dramatic difference from the saddle I had been using. My horse all of a sudden went tremendously forward to the point where I was having to hold him back instead of kick, kick, kick. It basically felt like I'd released the handbrake, and he was amazingly forward. When I try saddles, I often don't feel confident about what I feel, but there's just no question. He just was so freely forward. It was wonderful. There could be such a difference in how a horse goes based on the saddle that's on his back. I mean, it was night and day. It was like I'd imported a new horse.
I was very impressed just in the pre-test rides that we did to set up for the test. Even the very first time I rode in the saddle, every horse we used it on felt better. You know, there was something that was better with each horse. There was a very clear difference. And then when we did the test, same thing. So that was really, really interesting to me. The biggest and most consistent difference was they were all more forward and more easy to straighten out. And they started off straighter. Another difference was that some horses had a little more trouble half passing one way than the other, and that kind of went away. It was a lot more, everything was more symmetrical. They also, I had one horse that had a breathing problem. He had an easier time breathing. Their comfort level just seemed much better. And so everything was easier in the ride. They all liked it. They all felt closer to the horse. They all felt comfortable. Nobody had any problems with being insecure in the saddle. In fact, they felt more secure. And also for some of them, they had trouble previously with saddle fit for themselves because of either having a short leg or a long leg or something unique in their body structure that made that difficult. And with these saddles, it takes that piece out of the equation, and so for them, that was really nice. Almost no difference, which is great because you can have show in the skinny flap, and then at home, if you want to take that off and ride flapless, you can. And you really feel almost no difference, so that I really like. And that's been one of the really great things about it. It's a pretty user-friendly saddle. So with the reactor panel, I've been able to learn to fit it at least well enough that I can help my horses out if they start to have trouble. And the customer support's really good. You can call someone, FaceTime someone, and if you need help fitting your saddle, they will help you. They're also good about coming out when you need them, but in between visits, it's way easier to keep your horses happy with the reactor panel saddle. Even if you make a mistake, you don't have to worry about it because you can just put it back to the way you had it initially, and then maybe you do half as much trying to get it right. And so you can, trial and error is okay with these saddles. All the horses I had in training all had saddles that an effort had been made to fit them correctly, and some of them had custom saddles. So it wasn't horses that I knew the saddles didn't fit. These were horses that were going pretty decent and had an effort had been made to make things correct, and still I saw that big difference. So for me, even just in the first ride, I would say that was my aha moment, like this is different. With all the horses, they're more forward, even the ones that already tended to be pretty forward, and the stride's more open. They're easier to keep straight, which is a big deal. And so because of all those things, everything is easier. The difference in the horse's forwardness, the cadence of the gaits.
He moves freer in it in front. He's able to pick himself up and carry himself better.
A totally dramatic difference.
All of my horses just seem so much happier, more willing, more athletic, freer, jump better, everything you want your horses to feel.